The Lamborghini Diablo, a 10-year fight for supercar supremacy. Let's get right into it.
325 kilometers per hour. That is the exact barrier the Diablo shattered back in 1990. It made it the very first production Lamborghini to officially cross that mythical 200-mile-per-hour mark. This wasn't just a car. It was a pure statement of raw, unadulterated power. Designing the Devil. Our story actually kicks off in June 1985 with a highly secretive endeavor known as Project 132. The stakes? Well, they literally could not have been higher. Lamborghini desperately needed a replacement for the legendary Countach, the poster car of an entire generation. Their one singular goal was a top speed of at least 315 kilometers per hour. But there was an incredible creative clash behind the scenes. Originally, Marcello Gandini, the absolute legend who designed the Countach and the Miura, penned a sharp, heavily angled, aggressive successor. But then, in 1987, Chrysler bought Lamborghini, and Chrysler's management, they took one look at Gandini's harsh edges and just said no. They actually forced their own design team in Detroit to execute a massive redesign, smoothing out those sharp corners and softening the lines into the final production Diablo. Gandini was actually so furious about this that he later took his original, sharper design and used it for a completely different car, the Cesaro Rotor V16. Despite all that corporate tug-of-war, they still needed a name. And this perfectly highlights Lamborghini's deep-rooted traditions. They named it Diablo, Spanish for devil. But this wasn't just some generic, edgy name. It was actually named after a famously ferocious fighting bull raised by the Duke of Veragua. This specific bull was legendary for an epic battle in Madrid all the way back on July 11, 1869. So the devil really was in the details. Breaking 200 miles per hour. Now, developing this mechanical beast was a massive financial undertaking. We're talking a staggering 6 billion Italian lira just to bring it to life. So what exactly did that 6 billion lire buy them? The original 1990 release was an absolute mechanical marvel. Sitting at its core was a 5.7-liter dual overhead cam V12 engine. It pumped out an incredible 492 PS, which is about 485 horsepower, along with 580 newton-meters of torque. To optimize the weight distribution, they mid-mounted this massive engine, sending all that terrifying power exclusively to the rear wheels. And get this, there were no anti-lock brakes initially, no electronic safety nets whatsoever. It was just you, a heavy manual gearbox, and the devil. The devil adapts. You see, the supercar market moves incredibly fast, and for the Diablo to survive the 1990s, it really had to evolve. You can actually see how Lamborghini strategically shifted the car's DNA over time. The base Diablo started out as a pure rear-wheel drive machine, weighing 1,576 kilograms. Then they rolled out the VT, which added all-wheel drive and, naturally, a little bit of weight. But look at the SE30, their 30th anniversary special. For that one, they stripped out luxuries like power steering and air conditioning, slashing the weight down to just 1,451 kilograms while boosting the power to 525 PS. And then we have the SV, which jumped to 510 PS but went right back to that purest rear-wheel drive layout. Now, we definitely need to highlight the VT specifically. Introduced in 1993, VT stands for viscous traction, and it completely transformed how the Diablo handled. Lamborghini actually borrowed and tweaked the four-wheel drive tech straight from their LMZO2 SUV. This computer-modulated system could instantly send up to 25% of the engine's torque to the front wheels the very second it detected any rear axle slip. It basically tamed the Diablo just enough to make its extreme power actually usable on real roads. Which brings us to a truly legendary moniker, Super Veloce, or SV. They revived this in 1995 for the first time since the iconic Miura SV, and it was honestly a bit of a paradox. It packed way more power than the standard Diablo, up to 510 PS, and featured aggressive functional aerodynamics and massive brakes. Yet, ironically, Lamborghini priced it slightly below the standard model. That's right, the SV became the new entry-level Diablo. It was an instant icon, and you might even remember it famously gracing the cover of the Need for Speed 3 Hot Pursuit video game. Modernizing a legend. As the 90s were wrapping up, a massive seismic shift happened behind the scenes. Audi officially acquired Lamborghini in 1998, sparking a whole new era of modernization for this aging yet legendary platform. Audi absolutely wasted no time after that 1998 acquisition. By 1999, they rolled out a huge mid-cycle facelift for the Diablo. They completely tossed out the flat, old-school Italian dashboard and replaced it with a wave-shaped, integrated design inspired by Bang & Olufsen electronics. They added ABS for the very first time, upgraded the engines with variable valve timing to push the output up to 530 PS, and streamlined the whole lineup. This massive sprint toward refinement finally culminated in 2001 with the final Diablo VT 6.0 SE models, right before the car was officially retired. But do you know what the most recognizable change of that 1999 facelift was? The headlights. The classic aerodynamic pop-up headlights that pretty much defined 80s and 90s supercars were gone, replaced by new fixed composite lenses. And here is the crazy secret behind those new lights. Lamborghini didn't even design them. They were actually borrowed, under license, straight from the Nissan 300ZX. It's seriously one of the greatest pieces of automotive trivia. A roaring Italian V12 supercar staring right through the eyes of a Japanese sports coupe. From street to track. Now, for decades, founder Ferruccio Lamborghini had a very strict rule. Lamborghini would absolutely not build street-legal race cars like their rival Ferrari did. But with the Diablo, that rule was finally broken. To compete in custom series like the Lamborghini Super Trophy, they engineered the Diablo SVR and later the GTR. These things were hardcore, stripped-down track weapons. They gutted the interior, welded in a full roll cage, and completely threw out the heavy glass windows, replacing them with fixed racing plexiglass with little sliding vents. They bolted massive, adjustable carbon fiber wings directly to the chassis. And because the SVR sat so incredibly low to the ground with its racing skirts, standard rolling jocks literally couldn't fit underneath it. So they just integrated pneumatic air jocks right into the car for pit lane service. But the absolute ultimate racing iteration, that would be the Diablo GT1 Stradale project. Purpose-built to conquer GT1 class racing, this monster featured a tubular steel chassis and a full carbon fiber body. The engine was stroked out to 6.0 liters, spitting out a massive 655 PS. And the most shocking stat of all, thanks to that strict carbon fiber diet, the entire car weighed a mere 1,050 kilograms. That power-to-weight ratio is absolutely terrifying to even think about. Passing the torch. So how on earth do you replace a car that has evolved into a 655-horsepower carbon fiber monster? Well, it wasn't easy. The final years of the Diablo were pretty chaotic as corporate struggled to find a worthy successor. In the mid to late 90s, Lamborghini was desperately trying to design that successor, all while trying to save cash by reusing the Diablo's existing chassis. This led to prototypes like the Zagato Raptor and the Lamborghini Countach. The Countach actually even hit the test track. But when the Volkswagen Group took over via Audi, President Ferdinand Piëch stepped in. He took one look at the Countach, decided it just wasn't aggressive enough, absolutely hated the large rear air intakes, and entirely rejected it. So the Diablo ended up outliving its own planned successors. Because those successors got scrapped, the Diablo had to soldier on, while a brand new car was developed completely from scratch. Audi brought in designer Luc Dunkerwolke to create a final, highly refined swan song for the car, the Diablo VT 6.0. It featured heavily revised bodywork, a far more luxurious interior, and a massive 6.0-liter V12 engine pushing 550 PS. It was, without a doubt, the most civilized, drivable, and polished version of the Devil ever made. And that brings us to this final tally, 2,903. That is the total number of Diablos produced across all of its wild variants over an incredible 11-year production run. From those raw, dangerous early 90s rear-wheel drive models to the track-ready GTRs, all the way to the refined Audi-era all-wheel drive machines, the Diablo constantly adapted. It survived a whole decade of corporate restructuring and massive industry changes. Which leaves us with one final lingering question. The Devil survived a decade of corporate chaos, design rejections, and shifting ownership. It practically dragged Lamborghini kicking and screaming into the 200-mile-per-hour modern era. But after rejecting the Countach, what kind of beast did Luc Dunkerwolke and the Audi team finally unleash to replace it? Well, that is a story for the Murcielago. Thank you for joining me for this explainer. If you want to see the breakdown of the Murcielago next, definitely let me know.